The dusty Toyota pickup rolled slowly along a remote trail on the outskirts of Marula Ridge Reserve, a protected area nestled deep in northern Botswana. Its windows were dark, the license plates partially covered with mud. A local farmer had called the authorities earlier that morning. He'd noticed the vehicle parked suspiciously near the game reserve fence, something that had been happening more often in recent months. Responding to the tip, the Wildlife Protection Unit quickly set up a checkpoint just outside the nearby village of Mbali. When the vehicle approached and the officers waved it down, the driver hesitated, just long enough to raise red flags. He was a man in his 40s, alone, carrying forged papers claiming he was transporting domestic livestock. But when the officers pulled back the torn green tarp in the truck bed, what they saw made them fall silent. Inside an old rusted cage were 3 lion cubs, emaciated, wide-eyed, and shaking violently. They huddled together, their fur matted, their bellies visibly sunken from hunger. The smell of urine and fear was overwhelming. The man was immediately arrested for smuggling protected wildlife, a serious offense under Botswana's anti-poaching laws. During questioning, he confessed, the cub's mother had been shot 3 days prior during an illegal trophy hunt. She had been killed to make the cubs easier to control and sell on the black market. They were intended for a private buyer across the border who specialized in exotic animal displays. The officers transported the cubs to the nearest rural police outpost, lacking any professional animal care facility. In the building's reception room, they set up an improvised warm space using blankets, towels, and a space heater. They boiled water for milk and used baby bottles to feed the cubs. A young officer named Duma, only 23, cradled the smallest cub in his lap and gently fed her. The cubs, later named Nuru, Django, and Lela, clung desperately to their new caretakers. They whimpered and pawed at their clothes, curling up near the officers' boots like orphaned puppies. The officers worked in shifts, taking turns wiping down the cage, offering milk every 2 hours, and singing softly to calm their cries at night. Despite the difficult beginning, something unexpected was forming. A bond. Within days, the cubs began to respond, purring softly, rolling over, even trying to play. Though still weak, they seemed to sense that, for now, they were safe. 4 days later, the Lion Recovery Foundation dispatched a team to collect them. The officers watched quietly as the cubs were gently placed into a soft-lined crate. It wasn't just an animal transfer, it felt like a goodbye. Duma wiped his eyes and whispered, "Be brave now, little ones." The cubs were driven to Kalunda Hills Wildlife Rehabilitation Center, a sanctuary hidden in the Savannah foothills. There, Joseph Mbeki, a seasoned caretaker with more than 30 years of experience, was assigned to supervise their recovery. Joseph was known for his quiet wisdom and deep empathy with animals. He gave each cub a name. Nuru, meaning light, for her curious eyes. Django, strength, for his stubborn will to eat despite the trauma. And Lela, born at night, because she often cried in her sleep. Every morning, Joseph greeted them gently, kneeling to hand-feed them and softly repeating their names. At first, they barely responded. But over time, they began exploring their enclosure. They chased leaves, pawed at shadows, and started engaging with enrichment toys. In the afternoons, Joseph would sit outside their pen, reading aloud from a worn copy of African Animal Behavior. The cubs listened, perhaps more to the comfort in his voice than the words. But after 3 weeks, Joseph began noticing signs of psychological withdrawal. The cubs stopped eating as much. They curled together in corners and no longer responded to the trainers. Their playfulness had faded. Joseph suspected the issue ran deeper. He wrote a report detailing their behavioral regression and delivered it to the sanctuary's management. At an internal meeting, he presented a bold idea: introduce a surrogate mother to provide the emotional connection they had lost. But not a lion, he clarified. A dog. One they can bond with. One that knows how to love. The idea sparked debate. Some argued it would interfere with the cubs' instincts. But Joseph stood firm. Instinct is important, but love is fundamental. Without a secure foundation, they won't survive in the wild. Eventually, the board agreed to a monitored trial using Kaya, a retired female Boer dog who had lived at the sanctuary for years. Kaya was introduced slowly. For the first few days, she sat quietly near the enclosure, never forcing herself into their space. The cubs watched her from afar, confused but not fearful. Then one morning, Django approached the fence. He sniffed cautiously, then touched noses with Kaya. Later that day, Lela followed. And by the end of the week, all three cubs were pressed against the fence, purring when she came near. When Kaya was finally let inside the enclosure, she lay down and offered her belly. All three cubs curled against her. She licked their faces and nuzzled their heads. From that day forward, she was their mother. The change was immediate. They ate heartily again. They played more, even began pouncing and stalking each other in practice games. They followed Kaya everywhere, competing to rest their heads on her chest or snuggling into her thick fur when storms passed over the hills. Joseph recorded everything: their weight, behavior, reflex training, and emotional responses. Kaya became not just a comfort, but the bridge to their survival. As months passed, the cubs grew larger, stronger, faster. Their roars deepened. Their instincts sharpened. They began hunting simulated prey, climbing trees, and exploring more independent behavior. Kaya was still near, but now often watched from a distance. Eventually, it was time. A panel of conservationists approved the plan to soft-release the trio into Marula Ridge's protected grasslands. That morning, the staff loaded the now majestic young lions into the transport crate. Kaya came along, for one final farewell. At the release site, the gate was opened. The three lions stepped out into the golden plains. They paused, then turned to Kaya. Nuru pressed her head against Kaya's neck. Django sat quietly beside her. Lela licked her face, a farewell filled with affection. Kaya didn't follow. She only watched, her tail sweeping gently across the grass as the cubs turned and ran. Joseph stood beside her, hand resting on her back. "You gave them the strength to be wild," he said. As the lions disappeared into the savannah, Joseph smiled. Kaya had not lost her cubs. She had given them back to the wild, with love, patience, and the heart of a mother. And wherever they roamed, her love would follow them, etched into their instincts, their courage, and their freedom. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe to support the channel. See you in the next episodes.